What is the ideal holding period for real estate to maximize the ROI?
But I think super luxury is now going to enter Bangalore.
Samir, how did you get your nickname the Dalai Lama?
You realize you can't live in a mutual fund certificate.
Do the older areas, the central parts of Bangalore, still make sense to invest into?
You tell me, what are the amenities at Epsilon?
If the rental yield is high, that means the property is undervalued.
I think the whole metro connectivity growth is the single largest factor.
The stock price has moved up by, I think, many-fold in the last 1 year.
And a couple of my friends there are going to kill me for having said this. But that's the true fact.
Yeah. So, I have this theory about rental yield.
I would say a 5 to 8% return for these flipping properties and a 2 to 5 year regime.
You're working on 100 deals, one will go through, and finally the customer has to pay you but cover the cost of the other 99 that you worked on, and then he thinks he's paid too much.
Every time my wife tells me we have a fight and she tells me go to hell, I start driving on Sarjapur road.
So if you can break up these micro markets and just tell us like what's happening, and if you were to make an investment today in Bangalore, where would that be?
Right next to the airport, you don't have the best residential localities
absolutely.
Anywhere.
Yes, and there's about 40,000 odd units coming into the market every year, and this is at least for the last 2 years.
You've had an appreciation of 2x on the plots there in less than 2.5 years.
Many of them came in the real estate sector I'm talking about, to try to eliminate the realtor actually.
The journey of my life, from Buddhu to Buddha with my wife.
Samir, welcome to the Property Angel Podcast.
Thank you
so much. You are, of course, the chairman of CREA. You are also the president, the past president of NAR India, and the current CEO of NAR India.
Yes.
This is all besides running your own very well-established consultancy in Bangalore. So it's an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure and honor to be sitting here and talking to you. Thank you.
So today we are here talking about the real estate market in Bangalore, and no one better than you to advise us on where we should be investing in this very hot Bangalore market. But before that, we would like to understand from you what is NAR and CREA and how these two organizations work together for our viewers who might not know about them.
Wonderful. And it's a subject close to my heart. Both organizations very close to me. So CREA is Confederation of Real Estate Associates of India, which is a Bangalore and Karnataka based real estate association. Like CREA, there are multiple cities and multiple state associations across the country.
Okay.
So 47 of those associations across 35 cities in India, across 16 states, come together to form a mother association, which is NAR India, National Association of Realtors India. NAR India gets its name because of its affiliation with NAR US, which is the largest real estate association in the world with about 1.6 million members.
Wow.
So it's the policy advocacy, knowledge and education bank body as a real estate association, representatives to the government, passing knowledge and information to all the realtors, and also acting as their grievance cell to take care of all the issues that come along. And I would say God has been very kind. So while roles and responsibilities, like you mentioned, and designations come across, I think I've had the great privilege of being a part of the fraternity, being able to lead some of the key issues, first at the state level and then at the central level with National Association.
Okay.
So it's been a journey, it's been an experience, and I would say it has helped me establish multiple relationships across the city and give back to the industry via your work in associations, an industry that has given you so much.
Yeah, very nice. So, Samir, in preparation for this podcast, I was just looking at some research, some numbers about what's happening in the Bangalore market, right?
Perfect.
So today we have about 6 lakhs residential units. The stock available is about 6 lakhs. And there's about 40,000 odd units coming into the market every year. And this is at least for the last 2 years. And about 50,000 units is being absorbed. So clearly the demand is a lot more than the supply. right? But this is, of course, not consistent across Bangalore. I mean, there are micro markets, So, can we understand from you which areas are growing more? We have North Bangalore, the Hebal, Manyata Tech Park area. We have the Bellandur, Southeast region, the East Whitefield region. So, if you can break up these micro markets and just tell us like what's happening, and if you were to make an investment today in Bangalore, where would that be?
Wonderful. So while stats would vary a little bit, and
Okay.
that's another thing we are doing at NAR India,
Okay.
is very soon coming out with our own publishing research papers, which
Okay.
starting from the government to the regulatory bodies to everybody else can, especially the realtors and developers, can refer to, because today most of the research are published either by market research companies or IPCs,
Hmm.
which are more focused in the 6 to 8 big centers or the
Okay.
metros.
Yes.
They don't cover the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and
Hmm.
which is where somewhere stats go a little haywire.
Hmm.
But I would say, like I understand the stats,
Hmm.
particularly after the pandemic,
Hmm.
21,
Hmm.
22,
Hmm.
23, if you take 23, the numbers are touching close to 70,000 in Bangalore instead of the 50,000.
Okay.
And the absorption is also equally high.
Hmm.
So clearly, the demand is outstripping the supply
Supply.
per se. Also, the hang element, as we call it, where the inventories used to
Yeah.
be high,
Yeah.
is very, very low,
Yeah.
particularly right now, because everything got absorbed very,
Yes.
very well post the pandemic in terms of the demand. In terms of the micro markets, if we have to split it, uh, you know, typically of the circular city of Bangalore,
Hmm.
we would divide it into north, east, south, west, and the say the CBD or the central zone,
Central zone. Yeah.
and also create another one called the southeast, because Bangalore is really split into east and southeast
Exactly.
in terms of the large growth. So I would say traditionally the east Bangalore, which is the Whitefield, Varthur, KR belt,
Yeah.
has been growing very, very well post the pandemic.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Pre-pandemic, it was the southeast belt, which is the Sarjapur, and along with HSR and Koramangala and everything, this continues to grow all forever. Now,
Okay.
one has to understand a few things about micro markets. While we could talk of the specific pricing and what is happening, it was bound to become the IT hub. So Shobha, when they first put their apartments on Sarjapur Road in large clusters, I remember I had written an article then saying Sarjapur Road would grow immensely. And a lot of people said, who will come and live here?
Hmm.
However, Sarjapur Road already had about 12 to 15 reputed domestic and international schools.
Hmm.
And people prefer to commute distances
Yeah.
and have lesser distances for their kids going to schools.
Yes.
And it was bound to be a reason for the other infrastructure like commercial malls and hospitals and other things to come up,
Hmm.
which is what happened. And it ended up becoming the Gurgaon of Bangalore.
Yeah.
Then came the decision to have the airport in North Bangalore, which eventually came up.
Hmm.
The infrastructure came up better.
Hmm.
A lot of people at that point of time were putting in their money in Devanhalli on the land.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, it will take a long time, because if you travel the world around, and God's been kind, I've traveled multiple cities,
Hmm.
right next to the airport, you don't have the best residential
Yes.
localities
Absolutely.
anywhere.
Yes.
Eventually, with India's population, everything will pick up.
Hmm.
Now it's picking up, but
Hmm.
people had to wait 20 years
Yeah.
for that pickup to happen.
Hmm.
Whereas if you see Hennur, Hepal, Jakur, Yelahanka belt in the North
Hmm.
Bangalore,
Hmm.
that was bound to grow, and which is what you have seen a phenomenal growth on North Bangalore.
Hmm.
The west and the south have suburbs of conventional living in Bangalore, which
Hmm.
have also grown a little bit, but they are a little more peaceful.
Hmm.
Now, the IT crowd shifting in
Hmm.
from the US and getting influence from there, the younger generation obviously needed smarter homes, needed gated communities, needed communities with a lot of infrastructure,
Hmm.
which could happen only at the peripheries and the suburbs,
Hmm.
and which is where that southeast, east, and north Bangalore became the hyper growth point. The great part of Bangalore in terms of the micro markets that your prices at the periphery sectors could vary from a 5,000 to a 9,000 per square feet. And I'm talking average,
Yeah.
not a specific luxury project in there. Whereas in the cities, it could move anywhere from a 12, 15,000 going right up till 30,000
Hmm.
in the CBD portions and
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
But it's absolutely amazing that unlike Bombay, which is a linear city and the growth happens east to west, and super luxury is defined differently, or say for that matter NCR. Here, with our inner ring road, with our outer ring road, with our peripheral ring road coming up, the circular growth, there is always a periphery to go to at an affordable pricing, and larger homes and all kinds of requirements can be met. So I would say the micro markets in Bangalore will continue to grow because of a good spread out, and part of it driven by the IT infrastructure that comes in, which is this corridor of East and Southeast Bangalore. A lot of it now coming into North Bangalore, but the industry infrastructure is in the West Bangalore and the South Bangalore. So a lot of it will get spread out accordingly based on the client preferences.
So if you had to invest today, where would you invest?
So I would say Sarjapur, Whitefield, Yelahanka, Jakur belt. And I would go in this order.
Okay.
Of course, it would vary a little bit depending on the budget.
Okay.
See, your average pricing, say between the 50 lakh to a 1.5 crore, if I have to put the segment, would today move more towards the Jakur, Yelahanka, and further the Devanhalli belt. If you're talking of the 1.5 crore to the 3 crore region, your Sarjapur and Whitefield are still fantastic investments. And if you're talking above 5 to 7 crores, then going right up till say 20 crores, then multiple other factors in terms of individual preferences, whether it's CBD, whether it's periphery, whether it's villa, whether it's a penthouse, all of those would come into picture. So I think a very generalized question like where would you invest is not the right thing, because it will depend on the when we speak to an investor, we want to find out what kind of ROI he wants.
Yeah.
Is it a rental plus a capital appreciation, or you are talking only capital appreciation? So whether it's got to be a piece of a gated layout plot, it's got to be a villa, it's got to be an apartment. How we have to structure it would really depend on the budget and the individual preferences.
Got it.
This podcast is brought to you by Property Angel, the award-winning property management platform trusted by absentee owners since 2014.
So there's so much infrastructure development happening across Bangalore, right? I mean, you have Metro Phase 2, Phase 3, you have the peripheral ring road, the satellite town ring road. How is this impacting all of these micro markets? And especially, how do you think it will impact the older areas of Bangalore? Do the older areas, the central parts of Bangalore, still make sense to invest into?
Lovely question. Lovely question. And I'll start with the little humor.
Okay.
I'm glad these developments on the metros and the infrastructure are finally happening. Everybody complains on the traffic in Bangalore and everybody says it's slow. But I feel two things. One is every time my wife tells me we have a fight and she tells me go to hell, I start driving on Sarjapur Road. It's right there close by. But more importantly, the while we complain with the governments and say the infrastructure growth has been slow, I think it's very, very important to understand, and I said this some while ago also, that Bangalore is the only city in the whole world which in 20 years has grown 7.5 times in its population.
Yeah.
In its population. So it's been a population explosion, and it has not been easy to manage.
Yeah.
Okay. Now take a place like Koramangala. A third block in Koramangala today has a billionaire street,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I know of somebody from real estate who sold off at 3,000 rupees a square feet also here. So nobody knew that kind of a growth was coming. Okay. Key is the central business districts will continue to grow. When you talk of older Bangalore, a Malleshwaram, a Jayanagar, Koramangala and Indranagar, the relatively newer but still the older Bangalore.
Yeah.
Okay, and obviously your Lavel roads and
Richmond towns and
MG roads
Yeah.
and the Richmond towns will continue to grow, because CBD in any city will be a preferred hotspot for the traditional millionaires and billionaires of the city. Really. Okay, new IT bigwigs will come in, and they will prefer the peripherals and get into things like Billionaire Street and stuff like that.
Hmm.
You will see similar hotspots in Whitefield and Hebal in a few
Yes.
years from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is for given that it will continue. But I think the whole metro connectivity growth
Hmm.
is the single largest factor that has influenced the pricing on real estate in recent years in Bangalore.
Hmm.
Everybody knows where these are coming up.
Hmm.
And as they keep coming up, that is where the pricing will grow. But metro is not the only factor.
Hmm.
There are other infrastructures, your double layer bridges, your everything,
Yes.
your connectivity, plus the infrastructure in terms of where you can have smart sustainable homes,
Hmm.
where you can have energy efficient homes,
Hmm.
and most importantly, tech savvy homes.
Hmm.
To Bangalore, to the startup capital, that tech savviness is very, very crucial.
Yeah.
Okay,
So more modern, more newer is what
absolutely.
people
So
prefer a lot.
I know of a complex, a residential complex in Bangalore, a pretty well-known one, where I think there are about 20 of the future 100 unicorn owners are living in there.
Okay.
That's the kind of startups that are coming up.
Yeah.
So obviously, it becomes a herd in terms of the kind of people that would get together and stay it in there.
Hmm.
But overall, I think it's a phenomenal growth
Hmm.
that's coming in Bangalore. And I don't think any other city,
Hmm.
whether you take NCR, whether you take Bombay, or whether you take Hyderabad, has the kind of organized growth Bangalore is seeing. See, Bangalore hasn't gone to the super luxury of 70, 80, 90, 100 crores yet.
We'll talk about the super luxury. I'm
Okay.
coming to that.
But
So-
Bangalore hasn't also gone to the slums,
Yeah, that's true.
right? So it's a very, very consistent growth that's
Yeah.
happening, which is good for the system.
Yeah. So one of the things we noticed, right, because we manage these properties across Bangalore, and with the metro getting extended up till Whitefield, the demand for rentals in that region has fallen because now you no longer need to work or live right next to your workplace, right? What has your experience been with regard to this?
So I think it's a fabulous observation. And right from the pandemic stage, work from home
Hmm.
to hybrid working,
Hmm.
to come back to office, to exactly what you're saying. The metro is there. Now the rental demand is coming down a little bit. Now, if you see the pandemic, the demand fell completely.
Yeah.
But once the return to office happened, the demand shot up.
Hmm.
So part of it is temporary.
Hmm.
But Bangalore, till the IT infrastructure continues to grow,
Hmm.
till the IT industry, which is the hub, which is the backbone of Bangalore growth,
Hmm.
continues to grow, the rental demand will continue. Today, Bangalore has one of the highest rentals in the country in terms of your average apartments and villas, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay, and
Absolutely.
it continues to grow. So, a Sarjapur will give you a 3 to 5% rental. Okay, which is not there in most of the places. North has begun to give you a good rental. Now, when the connectivity happens with the metros, obviously the rental demand temporarily will come down, but beyond which it will still push up, because rental demands would more be based on where your kids are, where your commute is going to happen from there. So not everybody is commuting by metro. People would still prefer to stay close to the schooling, the commercial institutions, and their workplaces. And I personally think the demand will keep outstripping supply
Hmm.
till the IT industry continues to grow.
Got it. So, sometimes our customers ask us, like, okay, I've held this apartment for X period of years, and is it a good time to sell? In your experience, what is the ideal holding period for real estate to maximize the ROI?
Super. And I must admit, nobody has ever asked me this question before. But I mean, in terms of an interview, but
Yeah,
really, most people give expertise on when to buy and
yeah,
what to buy.
yeah,
Hardly anyone gives you an expertise on when to sell.
yeah,
And I think that's a very key, critical question. At the end of the day, real estate is a living come investment decision.
yes,
You outgrow your living decision at some point of time,
hmm,
and eventually it becomes an investment that you want to sell.
yes,
So, what's the right time to sell? Now, I would say ROI depends on multiple factors. Okay. Typically, it used to be more than a 10 to 15 year span earlier. Okay. And that is where the effect of compounding growth comes in the real estate, and which is where you heard 2x ho gaya, 3x ho gaya. And then you will also hear some youngsters say, मेरे दादा ने वो लैंड बहुत जल्दी बेच दिया था या मेरे पापा ने वो नहीं खरीदा था.
Absolutely.
You know, the very, very
Like the
common.
third block example that you're giving, at
Exactly.
3,000, if somebody exited, it's going at 50,000 a square foot now.
Exactly. Exactly. So the key to me here is, in today's world, you got to define it by a short term, mid term, and a long term exit. Okay. Your short term exit is still the capital gains period. So Mrs. Sitaraman has now made it 2 years. It was earlier a 3 year period. But I would say 2 to 5 years is what you call a short term exit in real estate. Now, if you that's what is called flipping returns on
Yeah.
the property.
Yeah.
So you find a lot of IT people where the loanabilities are high and they can get higher loans and they invest into multiple properties. Basically, what they do is get into a pre-launch of a
Yeah.
project,
But now you can no longer do that, right?
and you still can, and you sell it before the registration. As long as you do it before the registration, that's something that you're doing, a flipping a property without actually registering the property in your name.
Yeah.
So that's a normal income tax. If you register it, then the taxes and the interiors and all of that, the registration eats away on your profits. So you eventually wait 3 to 5 years. I would say a 5 to 8% return for these flipping properties and a 2 to 5 year regime is what a customer is looking at. If you're talking of 5 to 10 years, then you're looking at about 7 to 12%, 7 to 8% plus. You are also gathering your rental returns on that apartment.
Okay.
Either you are living in or you are gathering rental returns. So that partly compensates for the ROIs. And if you're getting a 3 to 5%, so your total IRR becomes about a 10%, 11% in those cases.
Okay.
But 10 to 15 years is when you get the compounding effects,
Okay.
when you actually go to a 2x, 3x of the properties. Now, while we say this, there would be surprises everywhere.
Yeah.
Prestige sold a new project 10 kilometers ahead of Wipro on Sarjapur Road. People said, who will go and buy there? That's where the start happened. The project got sold out in like no time. And you had an appreciation of 2x on the plots there in less than 2.5 years.
Wow.
So it also can pay you immensely.
Yeah.
I would say anything post pandemic has been a great time. Now, anybody who invested in the real estate cycles in 2003 to 2007 really gained hugely in the next few years.
Yeah.
So, real estate will have its own cycles. But the way the global economy, the Indian economy, the geopolitical situation, all of it looks right now, I would say it's a great time to invest into real estate because next 7 to 8, 10 years belong to India, and the growth on the real estate is going to be pretty huge. It may not be exactly the way it was immediately post pandemic, but it is still a great growth that's going to come by. And I would still say for the ROI, a 7 to 12 year kind of a regime on real estate is a period that one should look at to get the max benefits.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about super luxury.
Yep.
Right. And now if you look at, and we have to define, what mid-market means, what luxury means, what super luxury means. But today you have an apartment at Kingfisher Tower selling for 60 crores. You have your billionaire street on Koramangala, of course. And you also have villas at 14, 15 CR in Adarsh Palm Retreat and Epsilon and several others, right?
True.
So how do you really define, and you have so many other communities selling apartments and villas at the 6 to 8 CR range as well. So what do you define as super luxury anymore? I mean, is an 8, 9 CR considered super luxury or is it not? Is it considered luxury? How do you define that?
I would want to define it a little differently.
Okay.
Typically, in any city's growth, the first definition comes by money. And the money is invariably the location, right? You tell me what are the amenities at Epsilon? I'm sorry, but I'm going to be blunt. When the floods come, that was one of the
Yeah.
largest impacted
Yeah.
layout. And a couple of my friends there are going to kill me for having said this, but that's the true fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
really, right? Large plots, little green, but what really is a super luxury?
Yeah.
So when you get down to the global standards of defining super luxury, there are very very few developers who really got into super luxury. Like I said, DLF in Gurgaon got into it. Lodha got into it in Bombay. So, when you talk of 30, 40, 50, 80 crores there, besides the location,
Hmm.
besides the land pricing,
Hmm.
it's also the kind of amenities that you provide.
Hmm.
Now, I would say Bangalore finally started getting it.
Hmm.
I think the first of the super luxuries is the serviced residences, with Ritz Carlton, with Leela's, with some of the world names, with Marriott. Bhartiya City came up with something, somebody else has come up with something. Now, those are real super luxury in terms of the amenities and services that are coming along, right? Adarsh Palm Retreat, I would say, becoming the tech hub. They had already made Palm Meadows, which became one of the landmark in Bangalore. And with Palm Retreat coming in, with all the IT giants, especially the tech startup capital eco giants, all getting there, it became a it became a great luxury. But I would still call them luxury. Super luxury will now start getting defined. Okay, Embassy Boulevard tried it. Prestige Gulfshire is done very, very well. But I think super luxury is now going to enter Bangalore. And it's in the next 5 to 10 years that you will really see some of the high end super luxury projects coming up. So, super luxury would not just mean how much land you own there, how much is the villa, how many bedrooms, whether it's costing 15, 20, 30, 35 crores, exactly like Kingfisher Towers, right on Lavel Road. It's because of the location and stuff. It's fantastic. But now this will translate into villas, this will translate into the peripheries, and they will come with amenities that have been unheard of before in Bangalore. A private swimming pool is a must, a private large garden is a must, a rooftop amenity is a must. Your solars are a must, and we're not talking of the regular solars. So all of this will come into place. Like, if you talk of a Palm Jumeirah, you talk super luxury. Some villas, underlooking the sea, and some villas overlooking the thing, is the kind of super luxury that you talk about. So there are too many of those factors that will actually play in. With Bangalore's traffic, a private helipad in there. Most buildings build it at the top, but you don't have one that's actually connected and moves. So the connectivity to the helipads and stuff, all of those will define super luxury.
So, Samir, let's say you had to define it in terms of money, right? Then how would you define where luxury starts and where super luxury starts?
Anything from 4.5, 5 crores going up till say about 11 to 12 crores is what we would call luxury. And that 12, 15 crores and upwards of bracket going up till 20, 25, 30 is
50.
is what will become super luxury.
Yeah.
And then maybe like in HNIs, we define a super HNI or ultra HNI.
UHNI. Yeah.
Anything above 20 crores will really get there,
Yeah.
whether it's 50 or 70. I would still say, while money will always be a criteria to define those, I think the luxury word by the real estate developers is being
Yes.
absolutely abused.
That is absolutely true.
On a 40 lakh, I
Yes.
read
Yes.
luxury, and on a
Absolutely.
60 lakh, I
Yeah.
read luxury.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that has to change
That has to
for the
change.
word to have that sanctity
Yeah,
there.
yeah, absolutely. So, I have this theory about rental yield, right? And we were talking about it. So, the rental yield for residential properties in Bangalore is about 2% to 4%, approximately 2 to 4%,
Now about 3 to 5% post the pandemic.
3 to
It,
5%.
yeah.
So, the property prices don't move very fast, right? If I bought something yesterday for X, I will not sell it until I'm getting more than X tomorrow. Like, and you mentioned IRRs, but I will not sell it until I get that price, right? But rentals move much faster, right? The supply and demand and rentals move much faster. So, is it okay to say that if the rental yield is high, that means the property is undervalued? Is it okay to make that assumption?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
And if I have to respond to it, uh, my own fraternity
Hmm.
might want to shoot me down for this statement. But in India, the most intelligent buyer would be somebody who stays on a rental apartment.
Hmm.
If you think about it that way, when you talk at peripheries and you talk 2 to 4%, those earlier rentals of 1.5 to 3%, you're not even meeting inflation.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for anybody to stay in there without a commitment. And that is what a lot of young generation does.
Yes.
However, our emotional attachments to a physical asset and our long-term investments. See, the point is the capital appreciation on this is very, very high.
Hmm.
On a commercial property,
Yeah.
you could get a higher rental return, but your capital appreciation is never going to be
Yes.
so high. It's
Yes.
pulling back to it. So your IRs are peaked in there.
Yeah.
Whereas in a rental, your IR shoots up
Yeah.
purely because the capital appreciations are very high.
Hmm.
And over a period of time, the rentals have also shot up,
Yeah.
especially when cycles like pandemic and stuff came
Yeah.
in. After that, if you've seen,
Yes.
the rentals have shot up phenomenally. So yeah, it is underpriced when you buy it, but it's as to what returns are coming in. You had asked me a brilliant question, when to sell it. And I say your rentability of the property and the rental returns also decide when is the right time to sell the property.
How so?
When they peak it up, or if the rentals are growing continuously,
Hmm.
you don't need to sell it because you're getting great returns that are adding to it.
Hmm.
When they peak up and they become very stabilized and have not been increasing for a while,
Hmm.
and the property prices are also stabilized, that's the time to probably sell it. So I think the rental factor is, but if you take US, okay, your large investment companies, exactly like commercial, build residential apartments and only for lease, only
Yeah.
for renting it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you see fractional companies today that are beginning to get into the residential field,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, time is not far off. And I know enough and more investors
Okay.
who are now beginning to buy residential properties as investors only for rental returns.
Oh, really?
And I'm not talking of the second property or the third property, but I'm talking of multiple property investors
Yeah.
where it's only for the rental returns and management. So I think the game is about to change in India there, especially for cities like Bangalore, where there is enough rent paying population
Hmm.
and the moving population that will keep coming in and moving around, which is where the rentals get better. And particularly if you see with the IT industry, the larger rental values are also very, very good in Bangalore. In
Yeah.
fact, people from Delhi, NCR, and all get extremely surprised by Bangalore
Yeah, yeah,
rentals.
absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned the pandemic, and so much has changed in terms of what consumers are demanding, right? They want much larger spaces now, more
Absolutely.
luxury. And there was a point in which we said that Gen Z is not going to be buying, they're just renting. But even that is changing now, right?
Yep.
What else are you seeing change in terms of consumer demand?
Larger spaces for sure, like you rightly said.
Yeah.
So the 2.5 wants to move to a 3 BHK and 3 to 3.5, separate office space, sometimes for both husband and wife because it's working couples. The millennials and the Gen Z are also slightly different. So I would say rental is still their first preferred option, but but the investments and today family disposable incomes add to a factor of them investing in early. Their high, besides their high salaries and stuff, where they have the capability to pay EMIs, but more importantly, in terms of preferences, it's not just the large spaces, it's the communities, it's the peers, and people experience stuff in the pandemic. There were apartment blocks that were locked out and stuff. So, everybody wants to be prepared for some eventuality. In fact, Sapna, I keep saying this, pandemic in one sense advertised real estate more than anything else in the world ever did
Yeah.
because everybody kept saying, stay safe, stay home.
Hmm.
So, home was never advertised as much as it was during the pandemic. And everybody has realized the value for it. But besides the amenities, besides the security, because besides the energy efficiency, besides the tech savviness, I think the demands today are also about the logistics that it takes, how far to the airport, how far to my working place, how far to other things,
Connectivity.
connectivities. Somebody
Saying.
like me
Yeah.
also needs a space because I now know as a reality that I can be stuck only with my wife if something like a pandemic happens. So what do I do?
So, sometime back, or maybe even now, you tell me, 80% of a typical Indian household's wealth would be invested in real estate, right?
Absolutely.
But there's so much money moving into the financial markets now. Does that still hold true? Is it still 80%? And does it make sense? Because now, we were looking at the stock of Shobha and Purvankara and many of these real estate players, and the stock price has moved up by, I think, manyfold in the last 1 year, right? So, yes. So, how is it playing out in the investment arena?
So you're very right. Purvankara, Shobha, Brigade, and Prestige. If you
Yeah,
take the top four of Bangalore as the listed companies, all four of them are anywhere between a 3x to a 5x in a
yeah,
year
yeah.
in terms of their stock value. In fact, their apartment prices haven't moved that much. So,
Exactly.
so even as a realtor, I have to admit that the stocks in this period have given a phenomenal bull return. And while
Yeah.
we talk about that, the last 2 days they are crashing like there is no tomorrow. That's also another thing. However, instead of just talking stocks, I would say the conventional wealth in India, you're very right, 80% of the family wealth went into building into real estate, and maybe a 20% went into your golds and silvers and, kids' education and daughters' marriage and all of that stuff. But really speaking, I would say I actually did a little survey on this with somebody. I would say about 50 to 60% of the wealth is still in real estate.
Okay.
Okay. Only thing is, it includes the alternative methods of investments into real estate that came along.
Okay.
A lot of NRIs today, a lot of Indians today want to invest in REITs.
Hmm.
Okay, they want to get rental returns. A lot of them want to invest into various alternative method of commercial investments.
Okay.
See, commercial investment for a normal person wasn't even possible then
Yes.
in terms
Yes.
of the few crores
Yes.
or a few hundred crores that
Yeah.
it's required. But today you could invest a small amount through a fractional real estate or
Yes.
the private REITs that have come in and
Or the
stuff.
SM REITs that have
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So point is, people are looking at returns. Also, it's not just here.
Hmm.
See, people were not also that many people were not also investing in stocks,
Hmm.
in mutual funds,
Yes. Exactly.
in other
Yeah.
investment brands.
Yeah.
So point now is that financial wisdom has come in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's growing. So
Hmm.
obviously people, so real estate portfolio became a part of the balanced portfolio,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So which is very true, but I would say anywhere from a 45 to 60% still belongs to real estate.
Yeah.
The and it continues to. So I say this, while gold will take over one day, silver will take over one day,
Hmm.
stocks and mutual funds and other investments, other financial modes will take over one day.
Hmm.
The fact remains that there is no investment still which is a physical asset.
Yeah.
Okay. It's in times like pandemic again that you realize you can't live in a mutual fund certificate. The
Yeah.
only place you have to live in is home.
Home.
And everything that you think of in the world is either dukan or makan because it needs real estate,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
will continue to be the prime most investment. However, other investments as a balancing option in terms of an individual's portfolio will definitely
Yeah.
be there.
So you were talking about commercial investments, right? And we spoke about REITs. Now, how do you think the co-working spaces have impacted commercial office space leasing particularly? Because today everybody wants grade A, right? Everybody, even small companies want to be in a grade A office space. So how do you think co-working has impacted this?
So I think we are in an evolving state.
Okay.
Come, co-working became the rage.
Hmm.
Co-living started becoming the rage. Comes the pandemic, everybody said they're doomed, right? Nobody wanted to be there. There is a readjustment that has happened. Work from home is a reality. Co-working spaces come back like a gangbuster,
Yeah.
and they pick up. And now offices are making it mandatory for people to come back to work
Yeah.
and stuff. So I think the hybrid model evolution will keep happening. However, co-working space is here to stay. Okay. And I personally believe our startup system, and Bangalore is the startup capital, will keep churning startups. And if you see, the co-working spaces will always be a fantastic option for them, because it provides them the grade A support of an office, and yet does it without the very large investments.
Yeah, exactly. Low
Right?
risk and
It comes out of the business operational
yes,
funding rather
yes.
than a capital funding of
Yeah.
it, basically.
Talking about startups, how do you think the whole startup ecosystem has impacted realtors? Because many of them came in the real estate sector, I'm talking about, to try to eliminate the realtor actually. And then ultimately they made the realtor their customer. And I'm talking about Magic Breaks, 99 Acres. Many of them said that, hey, we can do direct transactions. Why do we need the middleman? But it didn't work out like that. Of course, the realtor is a very integral part of the real estate ecosystem, and that's not going to change. But there has been an impact, right? How do you think that has happened?
So, number one, the startups that I was talking was the various tech
Of course,
startups
I
on
know.
multiple counts,
I know.
and not just the real
Real
estate.
estate, I know.
But the prop tech, or the fin prop techs
Yeah.
that have come in. Sapna, I read this statement and I loved it, saying disruption is the name of the game, and when there is a disruptor, the only one hurt is if you are not the disruptor. Okay, so obviously these new tech has to be absorbed into any industry for a faster growth, right? Which real estate also did. I think we are still at the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
I think the kind of disruption that's going to come in, and you don't have to look too far. Look at what happened in Australia, where RERA was probably, or a similar thing to RERA was introduced 30 years back,
Okay.
and they are advanced. But the key greatness is, we are in a business where that personal touch is
Yes.
necessary. Show me an individual still who want, everybody who goes and buys into a new project actually goes and sees a site office. They have, the drawing is still on the sketchboard.
Yeah, true.
Right? So they're buying dreams, and realtors are selling dreams, translating dreams. So that part of the business is going nowhere. However, to your specific question of portals like Magic Breaks and 99 Acres and everybody coming in, see, I would say, we have confused tech. I think it's a fancy website. I think it's a portal that's developed. It's not really the high tech of it. Just imagine what AI is going to come and do
Yeah, it's not
into.
deep tech. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
What AI is going to do into the whole system.
Yeah.
So we have to keep adopting it. We have to keep working with it. There are enough and more prop tech companies that are actually focused on working with realtors, because they understand that's going nowhere.
Talking about that, there are so many apps that have come out, like there was Broker Network and so many others focused on realtors, and none of them really went anywhere, right? So, why do you think these apps meant for realtors have not been successful?
So I will answer this a little differently.
Okay.
Somebody the other day said to me, "You have headed the largest association in the country, NAR India." And I just said, we are a very tiny association. They would say, why? If you include the staff and everything, you're probably talking of 50,000 members. But in a country with our population,
Yeah.
you're talking of at least 15 to 20 lakh organized brokers and realtors. If only 50,000 of them are members of the National Real Estate Association,
Yeah.
then we are still very tiny.
Yeah.
So nobody has been able to move a large momentum in with the brokers and realtors.
Okay.
And there is a reason for it.
Okay.
See, in the US, there is a MLS system that works.
Yes.
And which is why there are many laws that can be implemented and enforced. Whereas here, there wasn't any entry barrier. RERA coming in, NAR India and IRE now doing the training with Maharashtra RERA for a certification course. Those are the initial barriers that are being set in, right? But we still have a long way to go. So there's got to be a lot of education, a lot of learning, a lot of training, which one of the private sector enterprises or a startup has to really do. So I think the next big disruptor will be a edutech come a app platform that will really take over the whole space. Okay, which at NAR India we are now trying to develop and put it out to our members really. One of the things that we are now introduced and we are making it mandatory and we hope to reach every broker in this country with is the code of conduct and code of ethics. More than the
Okay.
technical training,
Okay.
that's the first thing that we want to spread across and bring everybody onto a forum basically. And once people are on the forum and once they realize the value for it, and once the consumer realizes the value for it,
Yeah.
that is when the whole momentum will pick up and you will see much larger scales.
So
So
is
yeah,
this part of the whole Prop Gurukul initiative?
Prop Gurukul at CREA is a similar part, but at the
Okay.
localized level, whereas at the national level, we are trying
Okay.
to take it at a very integrated level.
Okay. So Prop Gurukul is at the at in the for Bangalore.
At Bangalore level,
Okay.
where we invite the industry stalwarts for training,
Hmm.
where we could be a large developer, could be a chartered accountant telling you on the latest tax norms, could
Okay.
be anybody else,
Yeah.
plus the regular trainings clubbed along with that,
Yeah.
plus any other subject like a digital marketing or everything added onto it. So it's still an education and training initiative,
Okay.
but it's not the classroom training kind of a thing.
Got it. So at the NAR level, we are how will we enforce? How would you enforce this code of conduct? Because it's such an unorganized industry, like you said. How would you be able to enforce that?
Okay. A good realtor today is half a chartered accountant and does enough courses
Yeah.
on the finance part to get where he gets.
Hmm.
Is half a lawyer and does enough courses to get where he gets. Of course, does multiple courses on structuring commercial deals and stuff like that. Eventually, it's about the educational qualification. Once this, along with the code of conduct and code of ethics trainings, is there, and once the word spreads around that you have a qualified realtor approved by NAR India, because you can't even use the term realtor till you are a part of NAR India and you've done
Oh.
certain certifications. It will automatically start demarcating the IIMs to the and the IITs to the rest of the world,
Hmm.
and that is where the whole values will pick up.
Hmm.
Time consuming in a unorganized setup, but like we keep saying, you can either view it as I don't view it as we haven't done that yet in India. I view it as we have a huge, humongous opportunity in India and a very large market for that.
Yeah. So talking about this, the brokers, I mean, that is one set of service providers where they actually get paid on success, right? And a deal can fall through for no fault of theirs, right? You're working on 100 deals, one will go through, and finally the customer has to pay you, but cover the cost of the other 99 that you worked on, and then he thinks he's paid too much, right? That's a structural issue. Where do you see? I mean, how does that get solved?
So I think you've snatched some of my favorite sentences there, because I don't know how often do I use this.
Really?
So, but I'll tell you, I did a transaction, a decent size, about a villa, which one of the senior level Microsoft people wanted. And even though he paid me, he was a little reluctant. And even though we had pre-negotiated, and he says, Samir, why do you charge that much? And I told him just one thing. I said, once Windows was made, the CD copy will cost me $10. Why do you charge that much? And then I showed him some of the certification courses that I've done. So exactly what you said, Sapna. We invest on our education, training, experience, knowledge, learning, all of that to come to this level. And we are not paid any retainership. We are paid only on a success fee. Like you said, they see the one deal that happens, that one transaction that
Yeah.
happens. They don't see the 99 failures that one goes through. In fact, I keep saying this. Show me a industry like realtor industry. The broker is the most optimistic guy in this country because failure after failure every day, they
Yeah,
still get up with the positivity the next day and are out in the market
yeah,
and showing properties and listing properties and doing transactions, right?
yeah.
So the key to me here is, since it's only on success fee. See, amazing factor that I can tell you is, whether you look at US, whether you look at advanced developed countries, whether you look at Australia and New Zealand, which are really way ahead
Mm.
on their real estate, the real estate broker market has only evolved. So little bit of modeling of it will change, but they will continue to be great at doing what they are doing, and they'll be an essential part of the requirement.
Absolutely.
In fact, the word developer says develop, a
Hmm.
builder says build,
Hmm.
and a real estate marketing agent, marketing says market. And I think each one will go into specializations.
Yeah,
I also personally feel within realtors,
yeah,
you will have specializations on land, commercials,
exactly,
primary markets, secondary markets, rentals, all of that,
exactly.
property management.
Yeah.
You will also have something very, very crucial coming up. See, I keep saying the organized will grow. Now,
Hmm.
what does the organized mean there?
Hmm.
Till now, because there were no entry barriers, for many of them, it's about making a buyer and seller meet. And in case they agree on the price and terms, this guy is clicked
Hmm.
without a full cooked knowledge. The documentation is a huge knowledge, and which is where you need a person. But tomorrow, even structuring a deal commercially will become huge knowledge point. Already when I do lands, okay, there is an investor who's different from a builder and the landowner today.
Hmm.
There is a fund company that's different. Sometimes you are clubbing three or four different entities
Yeah,
and structuring a whole commercial transaction.
yeah.
And weaving that would need a lot of knowledge.
Yeah. So I was also thinking that the most successful realtors I know are the ones who've really created a niche for themselves,
True.
right? So either the primary market or the secondary or commercial and in a specific micro market. So when you build up that expertise, that's what really works for you.
So, can I give you my own example in
Sure.
there?
Yeah.
You already know my background. So, I came in as from the corporate world. And when I started real estate, took the decision. Trust me, I said, I will sell everything under the sun to everybody under the sun. And tasted many failures. Realized that you need to create a niche and be specialized. And like you absolutely hit it bang on a micro territory. And then my mentor at that point of time told me, can you put a goal to yourself, Samir, saying if you are going to be operating on Sarjapur Road, you want to be called the kings of Sarjapur Road in the next 3 to 4 years. And trust me, that changed the game for me.
Hmm.
And that's how we got it going. Truly, even today, people, we become the first reflection point as a company, or a recollection point as a company,
Hmm.
when there is a requirement on that side of the town, even though hundreds more have come in,
Hmm.
with the growth.
Yeah.
Purely because we were able to focus on that. So, going deep,
Hmm.
it's like networking, it's like
Yes.
relationship, it's like
Yeah.
marketing. You have to go deep into it. So nothing stops you from doing other things,
Hmm.
but you first need to create your niche market before you expand onto the second one, basically.
So, what impact do you think RERA has had on builders and realtors? So, we were talking about a lot of consolidation will happen. Has that happened? What has been your experience with that?
I hope the new Supreme Court observation is not quoted in here on RERA, where Supreme Court judge has gone on to say that RERA has become a habitable ground for some of the old IS officers and stuff. So I will define it this way: RERA is probably the best thing that has happened to the Indian real estate industry. It came in for consumer protection, so obviously the best for consumer. It's the best for developer, and it's the best for realtor. In fact, I always thank them, because the Indian government has still not given an industry status to the real estate industry.
Hmm.
And nobody has recognized in the government norms the realtor and the broker, which RERA did.
Did. Yeah.
Okay, so there are multiple benefits to everybody involved. However, this is what I say. In India, law making is one thing, and enforcing that law is another thing. We Indians, by habit, will break the law on the road if the cop is not standing
Hmm. Yeah.
there. We will jump the red light if there are no cameras or the cop. Okay. So I think A, that self discipline, B, that whole implementation. Now, RERA, fortunately, unfortunately, was both half a central subject and half a state subject.
That's true. Yeah.
And different states are implementing it at different speeds.
Yeah.
Some are very, very slow, some are average, and some like Maharashtra, Karnataka went way far ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, and fast. So, point is, it's just a little matter of time. The secondary sales or the resales business, as we call it, has still not come under the gambit of RERA. But eventually, everything will be under RERA. But trust me, I think it has already streamlined. If you see, projects don't get delayed anymore
Hmm.
or don't get delayed. That whole developers, you used to earlier read those fancy newses that builder ran away with the money and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you see post RERA,
Yes.
none of that stuff is happening because 70% money goes into the escrow account.
Yes.
It is to be used for that particular project and construction only.
True.
The everybody from the consumer to the developer to the realtor, everybody is in one gambit.
Hmm.
Now, we are also a governmental system. So, RERA also becomes another agency and a bottleneck for the delay in projects at the approval stage itself. When we talk of a single window clearance for the developers and for the grievances of the either the realtors or the consumer. So I think it's an evolving state, but eventually it's the best thing that has happened. It also needs certain modifications. Now,
Okay.
unfortunately, in our country, when the law was introduced, a lot of people were not consulted. A lot of bodies were not consulted.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So a chartered accountant does not need multi-state license to operate.
Yeah.
An architect does
Yeah.
not need multi-state license.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But a broker today
Yeah.
needs multi-state licenses if he needs to operate in different cities. And my buyer could be sitting in Delhi, his wife could be sitting in Bombay,
Yeah.
and they could be buying a property in Bangalore. So I end up taking multiple RERAs, or if I have to sell a property in
Okay.
Delhi,
Yeah.
I have to take the Delhi RERA.
Yeah.
Now, somebody in Delhi was telling me that NCR region is UP, Rajasthan, Delhi, and Haryana, all borders.
Yeah.
Almost 80% of the
Yeah.
guys take 3 or 4 state RERAs to
RERAs.
do business there,
Yeah.
which I think is, and these are the kind of things, even if a mistake has been made in the law, they should be able to change it very quickly because
Yeah.
they're very evident,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's taken us 3 years of representations and everything. Thankfully, the minister has now assured us that things will move and it will change.
Okay.
Same way in terms of the GST rationalizations of the government. But I would say RERA overall is the most fantastic step.
Hmm.
It needs a lot of implementation and it needs a lot of focused arena coming in it from the stakeholders for it to become hugely successful.
Got it. Now, before we close, Samir, tell us a little bit more about your journey, how you came into real estate, and a little bit more about the work you do at NER and CREA.
Lovely. And Sapna, while I would say that I've spoken at a few podcasts and a few places, what I love about the flow here is generally the journey part is where they begin with, and you're coming at the end, which is fantastic because our focus should be real estate. But yeah, I would say God's been kind. And if I have another life, I would like to lead it exactly the same way that I've led. So, born into an army family, grew up at multiple different places in India, born a nomad, did my chemical engineering, thankfully, and learned, I keep jokingly saying, learned in Kemench that alcohol is the solution. So it saved me. But I came from a very middle class family background from the army family and worked with an engineering company for about 4 years. did some large engineering goods transactions, continued to travel the country, and then a stroke of luck brought me to Bangalore. A friend of mine and partner pulled me out. The business bug got into me, and we got into fashion exports.
Oh, wow.
That's how I came into Bangalore. And so I was an exporter for about 10 years. That gave me the opportunity to travel the globe and not the full globe, but 60, 65 countries has been a
Wow.
great traveling experience over at that point of time. And when I tell people that I got fed up of living out of the suitcases and wanted to do something that brings me back home every day, is one of my prime inspirations to get into real estate. People don't believe it,
Yeah.
but truly that's a fact.
Yeah.
I also analyzed one more thing at that point of time, that there is no other business where both the buyer and the seller pay you for the same amount of same work. I'm leaking out a secret. I said, this is a great business to be in because you get paid by both the parties. So while that doesn't happen in the US with a listing agent and a selling
Yeah.
agent, but in India it still happens, and that's how I got into it. And then along within the journey of the learning journey, we all come saying, I'm educated, I've traveled, I would do extremely well in real estate and stuff. I would say it wasn't bereft of the hardships, especially the first year and a half. And but that's the great learning phase that you go through. I am glad that I did rentals and small resales and large resales and lands and all of that stuff, because the learning curve was absolutely fantastic, and it put me on to things. Then came up a first project on Sarjapur Road called Mantri Glades by Mantri Developers, and we ended up selling a very large part of that project. And I think there has been no looking back, both on primary, secondary, and the other transactions since then. There are a couple of things that happened along the way as I was growing. There was an association being formed. There were a couple of incidents. A friend of mine in the real estate industry, his son did not get admission in an international school because parents
Hmm.
didn't speak fluent English, which upset me hugely. And something on the loan front, so they wouldn't give the loan to a real estate fellow. And I think those impacted me, and I realized as an individual you can do very little at your localized scale, but you need a association kind of a platform to do it on a larger scale for the fraternity. And that's how I was inspired to join the association. And I think there's been no looking back. Roles, responsibilities, designations happened along the way. But I would say the first few years, our focus was, Sapna, I can talk of small things. When we did our first event
Hmm.
at CREA, okay, we had about 70 odd realtors that turned up, and not all of them were members. You know how much effort we put in to do that, and we got some special privilege from the developer to market that project. And by the time we did our fifth event, maybe 2.5 years later, one of the top builders of developers of Bangalore, and when he came to JW Marriott and landed up, he just said one line to me after seeing 300 people in suits and ties and leather shoes, which wasn't the norm in real estate industry those days, saying, I thought I was coming to another broker event. I didn't know I was going to a world class event.
Yeah.
So, it all that transformation
Yeah.
took a lot of time, took a lot of effort. But in the process, we also developed relationships. And, similar thing, CREA joined NAR India in 2017. And my chairman at that point of time said, it's my dream that we should have a president from CREA at the national level. And I think
Okay.
we were able to make it there in the next 3.5, 4 years. And we've done some wonderful things. So whether it's political advocacy at the central level with the ministers, with the government, with the regulatory bodies,
Hmm.
whether it's education and training, IRE was bought over by NAR India, and then
Okay.
we have done created a lot of certification and training programs at Maharashtra RERA. Last
Okay.
year, all the training was done by IRE as one of the bodies,
Okay.
okay, which is a part of NAR India. Of course, we continue to do various Prop Gurukul kind of educations and training programs across the country. I personally have gone around as a trainer to maybe more than about 25 cities.
Okay.
So continue to pursue it with a passion along with the work. I've represented NAR India at the global level with NAR US as the chairman of international division, going there for the convention next month again. So, the whole relationship building and of course, the networking and the business exercises, business exchange programs for the members which are created, which is one of the biggest things that members get business out of.
Yeah.
And, learned that whole art. I have only learned the more you spread it, the more you give it, trust me, more the opportunities that come to
Come
you.
to you. Yeah.
So God has been very, very kind. The journey has been fantastic, and I continue to live it happily.
Very nice talking to you, Samir. Thanks again so much for coming over. I've learned a lot and it's been a very fun experience.
Pleasure. Absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for inviting.
Hope you have been enjoying our podcast. At Property Angel, our mission is to make real estate affairs safe, simple, and efficient. And that is why we bring you these podcasts to empower the consumer so you have the right information. We are an asset management company. You can outsource your landlord responsibilities to us, including tenant management aspects, maintenance, rent collection, financial management, and all of that. If you have any such requirements, please do reach out to our team. Please do also like, share, and subscribe. If there's anything specific you would like to listen to, please do leave it in the comment box below. Thank you for tuning in.